Okay, picture this. You have a nation fresh off this huge, unifying military victory, and suddenly it's about to explode into a civil war. And the cause? Not some rebellion, not a power grab, but a single monument built by some of its most decorated war heroes. It's a wild story about how one object, meant for unity, almost tore an entire nation apart. So, yeah, that's the big question here. How on earth does that happen? How does an object built to bring people together become the very thing that lights the fuse for a civil war? That's what we're going to unpack. And believe me, the answer is a massive lesson in just how dangerous our assumptions can be. So the flashpoint, the thing that kicked this all off, was an altar. And we're not talking about some small pile of rocks. The text says it was an altar of imposing size. It was huge. And because of it, after years of fighting a common enemy, the tribes of Israel were now gathering their armies to go fight themselves. But to really get why the reaction was so extreme, we gotta back up. Because the guys who built this thing, they weren't villains. They were heroes. These were celebrated warriors who had just finished fulfilling a sacred promise and were finally, after all those years, on their way home. You've got to understand the geography here because it is everything in this story. You've got the main chunk of Israel, the tribes living west of the Jordan River, and then you've got the Transjordan tribes on the east side. That river isn't just a body of water. It's about to become a major fault line. And let's be super clear. These Transjordan tribes were the good guys. I mean, years earlier, they promised they wouldn't settle down until they helped all their brothers conquer the Promised Land. And they kept that promise, right to the very end. They were the poster children for faithfulness. And their service did not go unnoticed. Joshua, the commander-in-chief of all Israel, basically gives them a 5-star review. He praises them, blesses them, and sends them home loaded with honors. It feels like the perfect happy ending, right? The credits are about to roll. But, of course, that's not where the story ends. On the way home, these returning heroes do something that, to everybody else, looks like a shocking act of betrayal. They build that massive altar right near the Jordan River, and, this part's important, they build it on the western side. The reaction from the western tribes is, well, it's not confusion. It's immediate, and it is absolute. The second they hear about this altar, the whole nation gathers at Shiloh, their religious capital, for one reason and one reason only: to declare war on their own brothers. They weren't just mad, they accused the Transjordan tribes of a breach of faith. Now that's a very specific, very serious charge. It's the exact same term used for the sin of a man named Achan, whose actions brought God's punishment down on the whole nation. To them, this was treason against God himself. But why, right? Why this insane hair-trigger response? Why jump straight to civil war over a pile of stones, no matter how big it was? The answer, it turns out, is buried deep in their national trauma and their religious law. They were so scared because they had seen this movie before, and it did not end well. They remembered the sin of Peor, where idolatry led to a plague that killed thousands. They remembered Achan's sin, which caused a humiliating military defeat. Their history taught them one brutal lesson: God punishes the whole community for the sin of a few. This wasn't just politics for them. It was about national survival. So in their minds, their logic was airtight. Building a second altar away from the official one at the tabernacle was totally forbidden. Therefore, it must be for pagan sacrifices. This was apostasy. They were turning their back on God. And they truly believed that if they didn't stamp this out immediately, God's wrath was going to fall on every single one of them. Thankfully, before the swords were drawn, they did one smart thing. They sent a delegation to confront the builders. And it's in this super tense moment that the accused tribes finally get to speak. And the truth? It was the absolute last thing anyone expected. Their defense just erupts out of them with this passionate, almost frantic oath. You hear the repetition? The mighty one, God, the Lord. They're basically stacking up all the names for God they can think of, calling on heaven itself to witness their innocence. They're screaming, "We swear we didn't do it. If we're lying, let God strike us dead right here, right now." And here's the reveal that flips the whole story on its head. The motive wasn't rebellion. It wasn't pride. It was fear. A deep, gut-wrenching anxiety that one day they and their children would be completely erased from the story of Israel. See, their fear was all about their kids and their kids' kids. They looked at that Jordan River and they saw a future where it wasn't just a boundary, but a wall. They pictured a day when the main tribes would look at their descendants and say, "That river is the border. You're not really one of us. You have nothing to do with our God." They were terrified that a line on a map would destroy their identity. And that, right there, was the huge, catastrophic misunderstanding. The West saw an altar for sacrifice, a symbol of separation and a rival religion. But the East had built an altar as a witness, a permanent monument designed to guarantee their unity forever. And their plan was actually kind of brilliant. Step 1. Build a massive copy of the real altar, so there's no mistaking what it is. Step 2. Put it on the western bank, so the main tribes always have to see it and acknowledge it. The whole point was so that if anyone ever questioned who they were, their kids could just point to that monument and say, "Look, that proves we share the same altar, the same God, and the same family." And that one conversation, that single moment of explanation, it changed everything. The entire crisis, which was seconds away from tearing the nation apart, just evaporated.
As soon as the Western leaders heard the real story, the text says the explanation was good in their eyes. The war was called off. You can almost feel the tension breaking. The anger turned into relief, all because the misunderstanding was finally cleared up.
And their response is just full of relief. They basically say, "Okay, now we know God is with all of us, because you haven't committed the treason we feared. In fact, you've saved all of us from God's punishment." The Transjordan tribes went from being accused traitors to being celebrated as heroes who saved the nation. So when we boil this whole thing down, what's the big takeaway? After all that fear and anger and armies getting ready for battle, the physical altar was never the real danger. The real threat, the real poison in this story, was the assumption. The Western tribes saw an action, and then, based on their own fears and their own history, they assumed the absolute worst possible motive. They jumped straight from "they built an altar" to "they're traitors, let's go to war," without ever stopping to ask one simple question. "Hey, why'd you do that?" And that's what makes this ancient story feel so incredibly modern, doesn't it? It leaves us with this really powerful question to think about. In our own lives, at work, in our families, in our world, how many of our own conflicts are built on that same shaky ground of misunderstanding? How many of our biggest fights are maybe just one honest conversation away from being resolved?